Hello, everybody. This is Zach Said It Again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and as part of our monthly spotlight of the departments of the Wythe County Technology Center, I'm happy to be here speaking with John Willis. Thank you, Mr. Willis, for being with me today.
No problem.
Now, can you tell me what your department is and what is it specific for someone as myself who knows as little about engineering as you could possibly know? What is the basic definition of the type of engineering that you are teaching?
Okay. My job at the Technology Center is I'm the engineering instructor.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what we do in class, I try to give students exposure to what engineering is, the different fields in engineering, and then through projects that we do in the class, in the shop, I expose my students to some of the equipment and or software that an engineer would have access to. I want my students to understand the thought process that an engineer goes in or goes through. Some, depending on where they go to school, some engineering programs are very theoretically based. Some of them are very practical based, where it's a lot of hands-on applications. But I want my students to be exposed to that, no matter which way what direction they go in. And some of the things that we go through are universal to anything or any field of engineering, whether it be mechanical or chemical or environmental. That process of thinking and designing is the same. A lot of times, as students, they go out in the workforce and they maybe hold some type of engineering position. They may not have to do any kind of hands-on application of the theory or operation of any of the software or equipment. But some employers have engineers that do everything from concept to completion. And I want my students, no matter what type of job they're in, at least be able to understand what the equipment and software is capable of doing. So if they think through a problem and they come up with a solution, at least they would know if it's a viable solution, whether they're running the equipment or designing using the software, or whether they having another technician actually doing it for them. They know that whether or not it's that solution is practical, or they have the equipment and the expertise to come up with a solution, or to run the equipment, or to run the software.
All right.
I'm not sure if that kind of explains what we do or not, but it's really just to kind of give students insight to what engineering is.
And that certainly does. And so let's back up just a little bit. And I want to ask you about yourself. How did you become the engineering instructor at the Wythe County Technology Center? And how long have you been teaching?
I moved into Wythe County in 1999. So, and I have been at the Technology Center ever since. I have a degree in electronics and a degree in industrial technology. And since 1999, when I was first hired to teach the electronics program, my program has kind of evolved. I spent 8 years working in industry, and with that, I had a background in manufacturing. And with my background and with my degree in electronics, my program has evolved from electronics into manufacturing systems, and from manufacturing systems into engineering. And as technology has evolved, and the needs of the students and the needs of local businesses, and the interest of students has changed. My program has changed.
Now, you are one of the few people that were around when I was a student at George Wythe High School. So you and I were at the same place at the same time. I came to George Wythe as a freshman I came to George Wythe as an 8th grader, actually, in 1998. So we were just across the street from one another for many years. So
I am probably the longest tenured faculty at the Technology Center. Maybe not here in this, that actually teaches a program at the Technology Center.
Right.
There are instructors that are older than I am, but no one has been here longer than I have.
In that amount of time, you have seen some tremendous changes in technology. Where did you come from originally before you came to Wythe County?
I was born and raised and educated in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Oh, right.
I grew up just about 30 miles west of Asheville. Went to Appalachian State, and then worked in Asheville for an automotive supplier.
Excellent. All right. So then you have been with the Technology Center for 24 years. So
that's correct, yes.
So you can give me some feedback on what I'm trying to do. Miss Summer Stone, whom in my opinion you could not ask for a better boss or supporter of these career technology educational programs, is an excellent champion of these programs. So with the change in the different programs that you have seen, and the awareness that is coming out about the programs now, what can you tell us that is essentially important about your program now that you want the public to know, so they can say, hey, I'd like to sign my kid up for that?
Not only with my program, but with any of the programs here at the Technology Center, I guess our main purpose is to have students ready for the workforce or for higher education, no matter what field they go into. And that comes with, or what's needed is to have critical thinking skills. Being able to understand what the problem is, and instead of just looking for a pat answer, be able to reason through the problem and evaluate your resources, and to come up with a solution that works at that particular time for that particular problem. That we do not live in a cookie cutter society, and that students need to have those critical thinking skills to be able to rationalize and prioritize ideas to be successful in their future lives.
And when you think of the term engineering, in terms of taking a class in engineering, you think of, oh, I want to be an engineer, I have to go get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate. And this is engineering offered at a high school level to high school students, where college is not necessarily required. So engineering is an aspect that can be available to all students at any level of education. Is that correct?
Fundamentally, yes.
Fundamentally,
I will say that from my experience, to hold an engineering position, there is going to be some postgraduate work, from post-secondary work, whether it be at a 2-year community college, a 4-year university. Most employers are looking for that. What I try to accomplish with this is to give my students an understanding of what engineering is, and let anything post-secondary fine-tune that to a specific field of engineering. So I want my students to understand those critical thinking skills and be able to choose which direction they want to go in engineering. There are so many avenues, so many different fields in engineering itself that it can be a little overwhelming for students to say, I want to go into engineering, but I really don't know what they do, or I really don't know what type of engineer I want to be. And so what I try to do is to kind of help students narrow that process down, have a better understanding of what engineers do on a daily basis. And, sometimes the best lesson is to find out that that's not what you want to do. I mean, I've had students come through my program and, I'm really interested in this, and I think I want to learn this. And the more they learn about it, they're like, that's really not what I thought it was going to be. And I'm glad I took this class now instead of having time and money invested in a higher education that leads me to a job that I don't like.
Right.
So sometimes it's better to find out in high school that you don't want to do it, that's not what you're set up to be when you grow up. Just as important it is to find out something to learn skills that you do want to pursue as an adult. So, and that's kind of what I offer. I'm one of the few programs that do require some kind of post-secondary education, that you are not necessarily prepared for the workforce, but you are prepared to make better decisions about your future when you go through my program.
Correct. More informed decisions.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So with every program that I've spotlighted so far, there are certifications that are given to aid them in either to further their education or to aid them to go out into the work world. What kind of accreditations can a successful graduate of your program come away with?
All of my students go through an OSHA 10-hour course in general industry. I try to cover that or cover multiple competencies when they do that. The course that I offer is an online course. It's self-paced, and when they finish that, they have an OSHA, which is the Occupational and Safety and Health Administration. It is an OSHA, I guess you would say, certification or accreditation. I'm not exactly sure exactly the proper term there, but they will receive a certificate that says they have gone through a 10-hour occupational safety and health training course in general industry. I've had employers use that as a deciding factor between possible candidate or employment candidates, solely because that is something that they do not have to pay for an employer to go through. So if that potential employee has already gone through that training, that is an expense that as an employer they do not have to provide. We offer, in the past, we have offered the Skills USA certification in engineering technology. I offer the NOCTI. This is the first year that I have actually offered that in engineering technology. And that's the National Occupation and Training Institute, I believe, is what that stands for, but I'm not positive. We can offer an MT1 certification, which is a manufacturing technician level 1 certification for anyone that wants to go as an entry level employee in a manufacturing setting.
In 24 years of doing what you've done, You have obviously seen a lot of different students come and go. So obviously you have seen different levels of successes with your students. Can you give me an example or two of a success story from the particular program that you're in?
Well, I've actually had one student go on and get their continue at Virginia Tech and get their degree in electrical engineering. I've had numerous students that have gone on into without actually pursuing engineering, but they have gone into some type of technical field. My program is very STEM based, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And so they've gone on into various different STEM fields without actually pursuing engineering, just because they may have not wanted to go on to a four-year university, or some of the engineering fields are very, very math-based and may not have felt comfortable with going that level of mathematics, but they still wanted to stay in a technical field. But I have had students that go on and into manufacturing or some kind of technical operator or technician. I had a student that finished his degree in computer science engineering. And then I've had a student that has, I would say, stayed fairly local. They are based out of the Blacksburg area. They work, went on to school and got a degree in instrumentation and automation, and have worked with robotics and designing robotic systems and setting up robotic systems for a local company that actually they spend a lot of time. He goes out as like a field technician and helps with the setup and the design of systems for other companies.
And with nearly a quarter of a century of experience in one place, you obviously have found that a very rewarding job to have stayed in it as long as you have. What is the most rewarding part of your job for you, or what has been the most rewarding part of your career at the Technology Center?
Well, I'm going to be really honest, and I'm going to tell you that when I was in school, that I swore that I would never go back to the classroom, that I was never going to teach. That's kind of the family business, so to speak. I came from a family that has a lot of educators in there, and I knew that I was never going to do that.
You were going to break that mold, huh?
I was going to break the mold. But one of the jobs that I had when I worked in industry was to train some of our employees and operators how to use the equipment and how to operate some of the assembly lines. And the more that I got to work with those employees and see that expression on their face of, that aha moment, I get it now. I understand. That really kind of drew me back into education. Within a year or so of kind of investigating what I would need to do and where I would need to go to get back into the academic setting, the opportunity to move to Wytheville was presented to me and my wife, and we moved here, like I said, 24 years ago, and I have been. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to work, and every year I get to see that expression on a kid's face, when they finally get that aha moment, when it's like, I get it. I understand now. And, there's a lot of things as an educator that I have seen, that different situations I've had to go through, and lots of things, I really just, there was a reason why I swore I would never go into education. But all of those get put on the back burner when you finally get to see a student. Things click with a student and they get it, and that sense of accomplishment that they feel and you can see on their face, that makes everything else worthwhile.
And about how many students do you have currently?
Currently, I average somewhere between 15 and 20 students every year.
Ms. Stone mentioned a class that built a robot. Was that your class?
Yes, I have built I guess you would say, industrial size or small industrial size robot since 2009. Mm-hmm. We participate in a competition that's hosted by U.S. First. It's called First Robotics. There are three different primary levels of competition. You have what would be elementary and early middle school would be the first Lego League, and you actually build a robot to perform a certain task using Legos and programmable Lego controllers. There's another division called the FTC, which is the first tech challenge. That one is geared toward your upper middle school students to beginning all the way up through high school. It's a small scale robot, only weighs about 35 pounds. The competition is a little more elaborate than the Lego, but not quite as extensive, or it's not quite as expensive as the FRC competition. Our primary competition had always been the FRC. We received a grant to start a team, and we have ran a team almost every year since then. It is a 120-pound autonomous robot and teleoperated robot that is to perform a specific task or to compete in a very specific competition. But students on that level, they typically have 6 weeks to design, build, program, and test a robot for competition. So that is the most realistic or real-world environment that the students would work in, because they're giving a start date and a completion date, and nothing can be done outside of that window. But yes, we've done that several years. I am currently looking at maybe not necessarily going away from that, but maybe adding an additional competition if I can get funding for it. I would love to do a solar-powered go-kart and compete at Bristol Motor Speedway.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. And do you find with projects like that your students are particularly engaged? Do you have enthusiastic students for the most part?
For the most part, I mean, we're always going to run into a student that they find out that this is really not what I thought it was going to be, but they still are involved because they want to see things through completion. But then they say, I'm glad I'm doing this. I'm glad I learned this, but this is really not the direction I want to go in, and that's fine. This is the perfect place to find that out. But I also have students that once they see that, they see everything that goes into it, and every student has strengths and weaknesses. Some are more mechanically inclined, some are more organized, some are better designers or planners, and they learn how to work together as a team to get that particular task accomplished. So
overall, you're very pleased with the performance of your students?
Yes, I am. I like it, and I know COVID has really kind of changed the educational perspective for students, but it is starting to come back because, everything was virtual and it was online. But I am starting to see that through the programs here that are offered at the Technology Center. You're starting to see that that potential to really start coming out in students.
You had mentioned you hope to acquire funding for the go-kart competition at Bristol Motor Speedway. Is there anything the community itself can do to help contribute to such funding?
Well, I've currently just completed a grant or applied for a grant from the Foundation for Excellence. I have broken up this project into roughly 3 stages, so it's not a huge funding undertaking at one time, to kind of break it down and to make it more palatable to fund a project like this, but to support the local Foundation for Excellence. That organization is here for the betterment of our students through opportunities in the classroom. The more people that they have that can contribute to that organization, the more money that they have to offer to teachers for programs like mine or programs at the elementary level to better enrich the lives of our students. So I guess if I could say anything, please contact them if you want to be of assistance. Whether it helps my program or not, it helps all the students in Wythe County.
Very good, very good. And we are grateful to have you as a part of this community. And we thank you for all that you do for our students and for the education of Wythe County.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about my program and talk about some of the things that the Technology Center as a whole can offer our students and our community.